Morning, everybody. Welcome to this session about strategic, not strategical, agile thinking. My name is Michael. I come from Belgium, so I traveled 2-3 hours to come and talk to you about things that are working well in agile, but mostly that are not going so well in agile, because a lot of companies are undergoing a transition, a transformation to a more agile approach, an agile mindset, and things are not looking that great. There was a report written in Forbes 3 weeks ago where they questioned a number of CIOs. And of those CIOs, 52% said that if they could choose again, they would not opt anymore for agile as a methodology to develop software. Furthermore, 71% of the CIOs said that they would not ever want to defend the choice for agile anymore. So even though we all know that there are a lot of benefits going on in agile, that it has key advantages for you as a tester, as a developer, as an analyst, there are some mistakes being made. And those mistakes, I'll try to highlight those in this presentation. One thing I want to give away already now, even though this is a testing conference, well, it's about quality assurance, this talk is not only about testing. It's not only about quality assurance. Because for me, quality is not the sole task of a tester or of a quality assurance engineer. It's the task of the entire team, certainly in Agile. So bear with me that what we'll talk about is not only for testers. Now, regarding to that Agile story, let me show you some numbers. The World Quality Report 2018 has questioned large companies all over the globe and asked them, in which way are you developing software? And we could highlight 4 different categories: agile, sequential, a combination, and an iterative approach. When you see the numbers, you see that 79% of all companies claim they are working in an agile manner. That's a lot. 43% sequential, 27% combination, and 11% iterative. Now, if you do the math, if you do the calculations, it's more than 100% clear. It's not because those managers are stupid or because they miscalculated something. It was just because people could answer multiple questions. So it can be in those organizations that for certain projects, they work in an agile fashion. In other, they work in a combination or sequential. But what is clear is that almost 80% of all large companies worldwide are adopting, to some extent, an agile approach to developing something. And we know something goes wrong. And we also have sometimes very bad ideas about what agile really is. We all know the Agile Manifesto, and we all know the 12 principles or the 16 principles nowadays behind agile. But what is agile really? Well, for me, this is agile. Not a guy. Agile for me is a mirror. Agile is a mirror that will present you something. A mirror doesn't make you look better. A mirror doesn't make you look cleaner. A mirror doesn't make you smarter. A mirror doesn't make you faster. The only thing that a mirror can do for you, what Agile can do for you, is show you your shortcomings, is show you your problems, and maybe already to highlight what are the problem zone, the wrinkles, that you can try to resolve. That is what a mirror can do for you. If you, as an agile team, do not deliver at the end of each increment, at the end of each iteration, something valuable to ship, you might have kind of a mirror, but the mirror will be very foggy. It will be very unclear. The mirror, agile, will not show you the shortcomings. So in that case, if you do not succeed in delivering something, agile will not assist in your way of qualitative working. Now, as I said in the beginning, there's a lot of problems with agile. There's a lot of questions regarding it. We know a lot of companies have adopted it, but we also know that there's a number of problems with agile. Why aren't we more successful in transitioning from a V model, waterfall, to an agile, iterative, incremental approach? Because there's a lot of flavors there. You have agile, you have lean, you have crystal, you have Kanban, you have Scrum. a lot of terminology, but still people are not happy. People are complaining that it doesn't work, that the old way of working was better. So you get all kinds of hybrid models. You have Scrum Fall, Vagile, Wagile, strange combinations where they cherry pick certain things, but still you feel unease. So what I'll try to tell you is to highlight 7 main problems that most companies are suffering from, and that will ensure, or that for at least for now ensures, that your agile projects are failing. And of course, I'll try to help you in preventing that they will fail in the future. Problem 1, we start too late. You might say, yeah, that's true, I snooze every morning. No, it's not about snoozing, it's about not taking the right decision. For any given company, the work that you're doing, the product that you're delivering, is measured from the date the work has started. The date you created the conception document, the date you wrote your first user story, the date you started writing your first letter of code, the day you start your testing. This is the moment you start measuring. And you keep on measuring that until the date the work is finished. All the test cases are executed, all the code has been written, the product is into production. This is what you call, in accountancy terms, the process time. The time from the beginning of the work until the end of the time. And in most companies, this is what you measure in cost. You know how many man days you have spent. You know how many full-time equivalents of work you have spent. This is how you can measure. And for most companies, that's fine. This is how they measure success for a project or for a product. We attributed 1,000 man days to it, and we have delivered the quality in less. Now, from an accountancy perspective, that is fine. But from an agility perspective, you should start measuring earlier. You should start measuring the moment your idea got concepted. From the moment you had the aha-erlebnis, from the moment you had, hey, this is a business opportunity, I want to do that. The time between the conception date and the work finish date is the lead time. And the lead time from a development point of view is much more important than the process time. The lead time is the time between the idea and making money. So the more time there is between conception and the work which is finished, the more money you are losing. It's not that you will spend more costs or that you have more cost, but you miss the opportunity between here and here to make money. All the time between the idea and actually developing something, or between the idea and putting something in production, is time lost. That's time you are not making any money at all. So if you have a good idea, if you feel like this is my next big thing, drop all your current work, stop doing it, and go to the next thing as soon as possible. And if it's not a good idea, forget about it. That works as a developer, that works as an analyst, that works as a tester, that works as a PO. Start sooner. That's the first lesson. The second one is we have no idea when we should stop doing things. We are very bad in that. We humans, we have a need to finish certain things. But sometimes we have to finish earlier. Who knows this one? The Concorde, indeed. Stylish project, business project, Air France with British Airways. They started to create the first commercial hypersonic plane that flew all across the ocean. Even during development, it was clear that Concorde would never make a successful business case. The cost of creation, the cost of putting it in the air, would always be higher than the revenue. It was a negative business case. But still, they kept on going on with the project for one reason and one reason only. Something you call the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is the fable that you have invested already millions of euros, so we keep on throwing more money to a project which is already unsuccessful, hoping that we get it back on the rails. You should never do that. The money you've already put on the table, the money you've already invested, is money that you've already lost. It's gone. You will never get it back. Making software is the same as playing poker. The money you put on the table is money which is already gone. The only sensible decision you can make is to decide with the money you have left, am I going to reinvest that in the same project, which I know is not going to be successful in terms of money, or am I going to invest it in another project? And if you decide another project, you stop this project right now. Even though it's successful or it can be successful, even though that marketing has launched a campaign, stop it. No successful business case, think about the sunk cost fallacy. Why are we reluctant to do that? Because of another thing. I wrote a great book by Clayton Christensen called The Innovator's Dilemma. And the Innovator's Dilemma is about the dilemma, people who create software, and not only software products, and the guideline by which that stands. The Innovator's Dilemma I can show you on a balance of value and time. Time on the horizontal axis and value on the vertical axis. What the Innovator's Dilemma shows you is that you have that S-shaped curve over there, that when you start developing products, in the first phase, so the first couple of iterations, the first runs, you will deliver not that much value because you as a team are creating the foundations. You're doing analysis, you're setting your base classes from development, you're creating your automated unit test. There's not much value being delivered. This is the investment phase of any product. The second phase, that's what most companies love. The second phase is the cash cow phase. With any iteration, with any meaningful iteration, you add a lot of value to the company. So every user story you develop generates money for your company, generates something for your team. And then the final phase, you see that the slope stops a little bit. There you see that it will cost you a lot of time, a lot of iteration to develop new exciting features. Your product is already complete. Think, for example, in this case, the Microsoft suite, Microsoft Office. There are not many new inventions, but still it takes 3 years to develop something new. So the benefit of that is relatively low, excuse me. Now what you see is that most companies start a new project when the old project has worn down. It does not generate that much money anymore. We should do something new. We have a brainstorm session. But we have the difference between that lead time. So most companies, when all income dries out, they start working on something new. What we should do instead is start earlier. We should start sooner by migrating the two projects. The moment you feel, okay, the cash cow is running dry, there are not many new customers coming, we are not developing that kind of good features, already start inventing in the new project. That will enhance the cash flow of your organization, because the moment that investment has been made, those base classes are made, you come to the point where you generate a lot of money. So in terms of retention for your team, it's better. In terms of happiness for your customers, it's better. In terms of good feeling for your own developers and testers, it's better. So that is the key lesson. Start doing that early, because if you don't do it, if you push that second project to the right, you will create a gap over here where you don't make any money at all. And we know what that means: layoffs, project getting cancelled, teams getting reduced. That's not what we want. So the main lesson here in this thing is start a little bit sooner. The third problem, we do not know what we want. We have no idea what we are looking for. Common problem. We have so many choices. We have so many user stories to pick from. We have so many opportunities, visions, epics. Which one are we going to develop first? Well, you might assume that in this case, nature or physics will help us. Because Darwin once said there is a survival of the fittest. The element, the person, the association, which is the most adapted to embrace change, to adapt itself to the changing circumstances, is the one that will survive. So you might assume, certainly when you talk about changing circumstances, that's a bit agility that you hear. So you might think that in most companies, survival of the fittest will help you as a company to choose the right project, that only the good project will survive. Now, nowadays, survival of the fittest is under a lot of stress. There are signs that survival of the fittest doesn't always work. Survival of the fittest. Okay. That's not the case. In most companies, we make very bad products. We make very bad choices. And what you see then is a lot of companies talk about we should go for another design phase. Well, if you take your average company, your average company has the ability to create a number of products. So this sequence over here is the products your company can create. We have the ability, we have the developers, the analysts, the testers, the salespeople, the marketing people to develop these products. For this entire collection of products, there's a number of products that have the minimum requirements to become a successful product. Not more than that. The base minimum. The base product, if you go for a Kano model, the basic factors that will make your product successful. Another collection is viable, will make enough money. Those are not necessarily the same kind of products. But what you are aiming at is a sweet spot. The sweet spot called the MVP. And that's not something new, everybody is claiming that. The minimal viable product. The product where you have the ability to create it, that contains at least the minimum amount of requirements, user stories, and that is viable, that will generate enough money for your company to have a successful business case. Now the problem with that MVP is that it's become a keyword, it becomes something very negative. Minimal viable product, we don't like it, it's so difficult, you have to organize workshops for it. It's dangerous because a lot of people also have the wrong idea about a minimal viable product. Let's do an exercise. I come from Belgium. Belgium is famous for a number of things, chocolate, waffles, and how strange that might be, French fries. They're not coming from France, by the way, they're coming from Belgium. I have a business opportunity for you. I will act as your product owner, product development specialist, if you want to call it like that. And we are going to develop a vending machine that automatically delivers you French fries. What is for you, if you are my Scrum team, my Agile team, my development team, what is the minimal viable product for an automated French fries vending machine? Shout. What does it need from requirements? User stories. Nothing. Okay. Fries. Why? Sorry, who is it? Okay. Okay. So you're looking at the product owner, you say the most important thing that this product has is fries. Okay. Thank you very much. That was exactly what I'm aiming at. That is the twisting point between your evaluation that you are making. What is the most important thing? You say, from a PO perspective and from a customer perspective, if I go to a vending machine for French fries, it has to deliver French fries, at least. But from an accounting point of view, from a sales point of view, I don't care about those French fries. I just want that it can take money. No, it's the same machine. No, because if your minimal viable product is that it should only give French fries, and that's the only feature you develop, everybody gets free French fries. If you have to prioritize between those. So this is the question, and this is what the minimal viable product means. What is the single most important feature of your product? That's easy to determine. And most of the time, it's just how can we take the money out of the pocket of the customers? That's the most important thing. And all the rest is added value. Fourth thing, fourth problem. We have no idea how we can predict the quality of the products we are developing. Well, yes, we can. And there's an excellent book about it, written by Ben Linders, What Drives Quality? It's a book, I think, written in 2017, so quite new. And it's about the measurements, how you can measure that a product will become quality. And in those agile days, it might seem strange, but according to studies, the quality of a product directly relates to the quality of the requirements. Now, requirements have a very negative meaning in Agile, because in Agile, we don't use requirements, we use user stories. And we document as little as possible, which is synonym for most companies as we do not document at all. So, it might sound strange, but bear with me that requirement quality is very important. And there are two elements of requirement quality which are important. One of them is commitment, and the other thing is stability. Now, what do I mean with those? For commitment, I want my team, my entire team, to commit to the features we put into a sprint. The entire team, that means the analyst, the developer, the tester, the marketing people, the PO, everybody who is in my team should be confident to say, I commit, we will deliver this with the required quality on time. If your tester tells you, we need more time for that, don't say, yeah, but it's an easy feature, we can test it. No, commitment from the entire team. On the other hand, you do not want commitment on your entire product backlog. That is too big. If you have 400 user stories in your backlog and a number of epics and visions, you cannot commit to everything. So you can only commit to the minimum in that sprint. But you want everybody's agreement on it. The other element, the stability, of course it's important, but it's a bit contradictory because in Agile we say, embrace change. And here I'm propagating stability. Well, I want stability in my sprint. The stories that I've migrated from my product backlog to my sprint backlog, to my iteration backlog, I want those to be stable. No matter what the product owner says, no matter how much tension I get, I will never change the user story which has been transferred to my sprint backlog. On the other hand, I want full flexibility of everything which is still in the product backlog. I want my business to be able to change whatever they want on the things I have not committed yet. So the two things I want for requirement quality, what makes up a good indicator of quality, are my requirements are fixed inside the sprint and flexible outside of the sprint, and I never commit to too much. I commit to as little as possible. That is my guideline for my Agile teams. Fifth problem. We're in trouble. We have no idea how to prioritize. Well, we do. Thank you. Because our story is more important than other stories. I'm the proud father of 2 kids. Those are not those. But suppose you have 2 kids. Which of those do you love the most? That's a dangerous question. That is what you, as testers, as analysts, as team members, are asking from your product owner. You ask a product owner who has created, who put his body and soul in writing those user stories, and you ask them, which one do you want to develop first? He cannot choose. They are equally important. And it becomes even worse if you have multiple product owners or a product owner by proxy, because then you have different people having different opinions. The bond you have between your user story and what you are doing is called the endowment effect. The endowment effect is a psychological bond between what you have and what you don't have. For example, this morning, I came to the conference and I had my first cup of coffee. For me, that was so valuable. That cup of coffee I had in my hands. But for other people, for you, that cup of coffee was worth less because I already drank that cup of coffee. That's the endowment effect. My idea, for me, is always worth more than your ideas. That makes it that we are sticking by our own products, by our own user stories. These are more important. People advance a little bit, so I go a little bit quicker. Problem 6. As humans, we are reluctant to change. I had a talk just before this presentation with Niels, who is sitting somewhere in the back over there. Excellent presentation by Niels. You should go over there later on. But we as humans, we are afraid of change. We are afraid to trust a new situation. We know we have all our comfort zones, and if you never leave your comfort zone, you will never explore new things. But you see that people are stuck in their old way of working. You have your developer that are afraid that testers will help and assist and write that code. I see too many companies where as a tester you have no access to the source code. How can you work in an Agile team as a tester if you do not have access to the source code? On the other hand, then you have the tester who are in their comfort zone that do not want developer to test. In any good Agile team, a developer tests and a tester develops. You learn from each other, you form a better team. And that reluctance to change is also a psychological effect. If in your team you want to invent something new, people think that choosing something new is a democratic process. That it's about voting, about getting a majority. It's not. Implementing something new is a psychological process, not a democratic process. Suppose you have a great idea to implement an Agile framework. the dreaded Spotify model, less safe, whatever you want to implement. You have, 24 people in the room, you are standing there. You want to convince them that this is a good idea. How many people do you think you need to convince to motivate them to implement that model? Most people will say 50% plus 1, so 13 people. Psychologically shown that if you have motivation from the first row, if you motivate 6 people, 25%, that's enough to drive change. Those 6 people will become the ambassadors and will tell their success stories and will motivate other people. If you wait until 50% of your audience agrees with what you're saying, you're too late. You will never get to that point. Then the momentum is gone. Then 5 of your competitors have already embraced a new model, have developed something new, and you come second, and you lose that war. So if you create a small group of ambassadors, that's more fruitful. Final lesson for today. We start too big. For the POs in the room, this is your lesson. For the testers, yes, this is your problem. And for the developers, I know I listen to you. We have too much work on our plates. We do too much, we want too much, we want everything. And in physics, this problem is described as Little's law. Little's law has a formula that says L equals A multiplied by W. Physics, brief short. L is the current number of items you have. A is the flow of these items, both the input and the output flow. And W is the time it takes for an element, a group, something to process an item. If you transfer that formula, it becomes W equals L divided by A. But to highlight it, A is a stream of water. The water that flows in, the water that flows out. L is the amount of liter of water which is in the tank for the moment. And W is the time it will take to start from the crane over here and come over here. This is what you call your throughput time. So suppose you have in your tank 100 liters of water, and water flows in and out by 20 liters per minute. Any average liter of water will take 5 minutes from start to finish. That's the process time, that's the lead time. Now suppose you have more water in your tank. Suppose there's not 100 but 200 liters in your tank, then you will see that your average processing time for that liter of water becomes 10 minutes. So the higher your starting amount, the more time it will take even for the high priority things to be developed. That is Little's law. And that implies also in software. If we translate that formula to work in progress equals your velocity as a team multiplied with your lead time, what you will get is, suppose you have 500 user stories and your team can deliver 100 user stories in a day, your average time to develop, to test, to analyze a user story is 5 days. So your starting backlog is 500 story points. If your starting backlog is larger, let's say multiplied with 3, it takes you relatively 3 times longer to develop any single user story. So the lesson there is, if you have a backlog, keep it as simple as possible. Do not put too many user stories in your backlog because you waste a lot of time. Not only on developing those, but also on changing the context. So if you want, as a member of an Agile team, to increase your velocity, to do more in less time, the answer is, according to Little's law, limit your work in progress. Less items in your backlog. If you want to reduce your lead time, the time between starting something and finishing something, limit your work in progress. So the main result from this one is do less, put less in that backlog. Because it's not only Little's law, it's also about context switching. Context switching is the activity where you as a developer or tester or analyst are working on something and somebody disturbs you. I have a question about this user story. I have a question about this test, about this code. You lose your concentration and it takes you more than 15 minutes, 20 minutes to regain your confirmation, to regain your concentration. So all the time lost is context switching. The more you have in that backlog, the more context switching will take place. So, takeaways for today. If you or your company is undergoing an agile transformation is like your kid growing up. That is what you do when you undergo an agile transformation. A child that grows. What you want is you want to give your child the necessary roots, that it can grow, that it has a stable and sound basis. You want to give it roots, but you do not want to release it too soon. You do not want your 4-year-old making your dinner. Then you release your project too soon. But you also do not want that a 40-year-old is still living in your house. So an agile transformation is a project that you should give the necessary foundation, that you should coach and release at the proper time, and then it will be successful. To repeat what I said, very short, lessons to be learned. We start too late, start sooner, start at lead time. We have no idea when to stop. Even if your project isn't going, you invested a lot, be not reckless, just stop the project. If you have problem choosing, choose based on what you actually want, what you actually need, minimal viable product. If you have no idea how to predict quality, commit to the minimum and commit with your entire team and keep the flexibility outside of your sprint. If you have no idea how to prioritize, let people choose based on their beliefs and ask them what is actually the most important thing, top one, not more than that. Difficulty to change. Remember, you only need a small number of ambassadors. And finally, if you start too big, well, make it smaller. Make, according to Little's law, your backlog a little bit smaller. I think I spent all the time I could. What I have for you, you have my contact details over there, my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn.